Welcome back to NewsX World. I'm Asuma Katauka and you're watching Focal Length, where we get your briefing from topics from across the world. As indirect US-Iran negotiations in Muscat reflect Tehran's balancing act between deterrence and regional influence, Iran has described the talks as positive, while US actions, including naval deployments, new sanctions, and military signaling, underscores Washington's parallel pressure strategy. Core disagreements persist, with Tehran limiting talks to its nuclear program, while the US seeks to include missiles and regional activities. The Persian Gulf remains central to Iran's foreign policy calculations, shaping its security posture and relations with neighborhoods. To discuss this, joining me now is Dr. Luciano Zaccara. He's a research associate professor in Gulf politics at Qatar University's Gulf Studies Center and visiting assistant professor at Georgetown University in Qatar. He's also director of the Observatory on Politics and Elections in the Arab and Muslim world in Spain. He joins us as tensions rise around Iran's foreign policy, nuclear diplomacy, and its strategic role in the Persian Gulf. Thank you very much, Doctor, for joining us.
Much for having me.
Thank you. Now, my first question to you is, Dr. Zaccara, with indirect US-Iran negotiations taking place in Muscat, tensions surge over Iran's nuclear program, missile capabilities, and regional influence. How would you explain Iran's overarching foreign policy strategy right now? Is Tehran primarily pursuing deterrence, regional leadership, or a mix of both in its dealings with the US and its neighbors?
Well, I think primarily what Iran is trying to do is to recover the deterrence capability that they lost. We have to bear in mind that since the war started in Gaza in October 2023, many things happened between Iran, United States, and Israel and the regional neighbors. And one of these things is that the deterrence capabilities of many of the countries disappeared. Nobody was able to prevent other states to attack, but mainly Iran was not able to prevent attacks against its territory by Israel in three occasions, and the United States in June last year. So what Iran is trying to do is to recover the deterrence capability, rearmament itself, making sure that negotiations, any kind of negotiation that takes place in Oman or elsewhere, is in a situation that they are in a better position to negotiate and not to be claimed as a surrender by the United States, but that they can extract some concession from the United States in exchange of some concessions made by Iran, mainly regarding the nuclear power. So I think that the main objective of Iran is to recover deterrence credibility among the very volatile and complex region.
Right. And now we saw Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi describe talks in Oman as positive, even as the U.S. moved the USS Abraham Lincoln through the Arabian Sea, announced new sanctions almost immediately after the talks ended, and offered no public assessment of the negotiation. At the same time, regional actors like Qatar and Turkey are calling for de-escalation through dialogue. For an international audience, how should we interpret these mixed signals? Are we seeing genuine diplomatic progress, or a familiar pattern where dialogue and pressure are being pursued in parallel?
Well, actually, we are witnessing two different styles of negotiations. I think it's very important to understand that Trump has shown that the way in which he's negotiating with enemies, but also with allies, is that having a very big stick and a very small carrot. So he's trying to make a deal. He's always trying to make a deal. He's always trying to prevent the war to happen, but reaching a deal that is beneficial for the United States or for him as a head of state, but without providing or without offering many things in exchange of what he's asking for. So the demands of the United States are very high. Basically, it's asking Iran to renounce or to surrender on any of the three aspects that you mentioned: nuclear file, missile program, and relations with the neighbor allies, without offering nothing in exchange. On the other hand, we see that Iran is trying also to gain time, trying to recover deterrence, as I said before, never abandoning conversations, never abandoning negotiations, but to get at least a win-win deal in which they can offer something that could be related to the nuclear program, but without renouncing to the other elements that they are important for Iran to keep their power in the region. So these two styles confronting each other are making these kind of results. Iran saying that the result of the conversations are positive because we expect to have another round of conversation, but on the other hand, the United States claiming that as Iran did not accept the conditions in the first place, more pressure will be exerted on Iran to push for Iran in the next round of conversation to surrender.
After this new round of indirect nuclear talks between US and Iran, after months of rising tensions and the US military actions against Iranian nuclear sites, the deep disagreements, including Tehran's insistence on limiting negotiations to its nuclear program and Washington's push to include missiles and regional influence, how do you assess the prospects of these talks leading to a durable diplomatic solution, and what are the key obstacles that remain?
Well, the key obstacles are the very big gap that exists between the two positions. Also, the lack of trust that was mentioned by both Americans and Iranians, the distrust that has been increasing mainly since the last failures in the negotiations, since the U.S. left the JCPOA, since the accusation of the U.S. regarding Iran, since the different reports of the atomic energy, and since what happened in June last year with the unilateral attacks by the United States. So there are a lot of obstacles that they are preventing these conversations to be successful. But I think that the most important one is that there is no agreement on what to discuss. Iran keeps insisting that the only thing that they want to discuss with the United States is the nuclear issue, because this is what they negotiated with Obama in 2013, 2015. And the Iranian position is that Trump left the JCPOA. So what's the point in coming back to a table of negotiation discussing something different than the nuclear deal? United States, what they want is something different, to include other aspects that they were left behind the last time, rightly or wrongly. But the point is that now it's very difficult to approach these two positions without making huge concessions from one side or the other. Also, the United States need to demonstrate that what they are pushing for is not only beneficial to the US, but its main ally, Israel, and also to preserve the safety of the other allies, regional allies of the United States in the region, GCC, Pakistan, India, or Turkey mainly.
Thank you for highlighting that. Now, the Persian Gulf remains one of the world's most strategic waterways. How central is control or influence over the Gulf to Iran's foreign policy calculus? And to what extent has Iran's relationship with its Gulf neighbors shifted since recent regional de-escalation efforts?
Well, the Strait of Hormuz has been always important since the Iran-Iraq war in the 1980s. Iran and Iraq, they used that the key position to pressure external actors to side on one actor or the other. But since then, it has been very difficult for any actor to claim that affecting the navigation of the Strait of Hormuz would be not harming themselves. So Iran has always claimed that they can do it, that they can control or they can close the Strait of Hormuz, but they never use that tool. And this is something that I think we have to bear in mind. Even though Iran has been always claiming that they can do some kind of stuff, they never did it because they know that the impact is much beyond the region and is also affecting their own economy and their own perspective in the short or long term. So I don't think the Iranians would use something that is harming themselves. They are not going to shoot themselves on their own foot. However, still it's important to point out that every time that there is a crisis in the Gulf waters, including Iran, mainly the oil price is moving up and down. So when the pressure is increasing, you see the oil price going up. When there is conversations going on, the price of oil goes down. So it's very important for the markets, whether then it becomes real or not, that something is going to happen in the region. So the oil companies, the countries that they are producing oil, and the consumers are also very worried about what is going on in the region.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for sharing that. And if these nuclear talks stall or collapse, what would be the most immediate consequences for the Middle East in terms of regional security, energy markets, and the risk of wider confrontation? And how prepared is the region for that scenario?
I don't think we are ever prepared for the worst case scenario. I mean, the countries have been reshaping their security arrangements, security agreements, making clear that they will retaliate in case they are attacked, trying to make sure that there is no retaliation whatsoever in any case, and trying to reduce tension. But nobody is really prepared for the worst case scenario, which would be a unilateral attack by the United States and a big retaliation from the Iranian side. We cannot know so far how much of the missile arsenal has been destroyed on the Iranian side, and we don't know how effective an American attack could be now in the first wave that would prevent a retaliation from the Iranian side. Iran already announced that they would do it, and we know that this happened already, and we know that an American attack already happened. So all these things already happened, but the consequences of that were contained by previous arrangements or agreements that were made in order to avoid escalation. The problem here is that now, if in the event of the new confrontation, there will be any effort to prevent escalation to happen and to keep the level of confrontation reduced, or if the United States and Iran would engage in a war that is trying to harm the most, the biggest as possible. If the United States wants to destroy absolutely all the military capability of Iran, and if Iran wants to retaliate to produce the maximum harm possible to the US and its allies. I think that we are all waiting that this is not going to happen, that the conversations are successful, but we will know hopefully soon that this is not going to happen, hopefully.
So beyond the nuclear talks themselves, the real consequences of this US-Iran tensions are felt across the Middle East. Do you see the Middle East moving towards a more stable regional order shaped by diplomacy, or is the region still locked into cycles of rivalry driven by the US-Iran standoff?
So far, I see the second option. What we are trying in this region is to avoid that cycles of violence that erupts from time to time. Since June last year, it has been very problematic to see whether a new regional framework can be established that is more based on consensus, agreements, rules, rather than force. But so far, it has been proven otherwise. So that's why the region is becoming more prepared for war than for peace. And framework for cooperation have not been established, despite the fact that there has been two different trends of normalization in the region. One is the Abraham Accords between Israel and some Arab countries, and the normalization trend that happened between Iran, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Emirates, that they were coexisting. And we were thinking that a future with less tension is possible in the Middle East. So far, it did not happen, mainly because of what happened in Gaza that disrupted everything in the Middle East.
With that, I'd like to thank Dr. Luciano Zaccara for joining us and sharing your deep insights on Focal Length. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
You too. With that, it's a wrap on this episode of The Focal Length. For more international news and updates, stay tuned on NewsX World. Thank you.